Okay, I'm joining just a few minutes early. It's about 5 till 6, but I want to go ahead and get started so that we have time to go through everything and make sure that we cover any questions that you may have. I'm just going to go right on into the PowerPoint. I've tested the sound and the video. Everything seems to be recording, so it shouldn't be any problems. We have made it to week 3. This is the middle of the term. As a matter of fact, after you turn your assignments in this weekend, you'll be on your way to the end of your first course in the graduate program at St. Thomas. So congratulations. I just want to remind you to check your announcements daily. As you have probably already figured out, I send at least one announcement per week, and it's always a good habit when you wake up in the morning or when you get home from work in the afternoon or before you go to bed to check your announcements. Remember that your initial post to your discussion board is due on Wednesday, but I allow you until Thursday because of this meeting. Be aware that on the calendar, I have a reminder that I have created because I know that if you wait until the weekend to open up your discussion assignment, you will miss the deadline. So I have put that on the calendar for you. Your written assignments are due Saturdays, and your discussion board replies, 2 of those, are due Sundays by 11:59. Remember that your library resources are available. I encourage you to use the library resources. Again, this link will take you to the St. Thomas Library How to Cite resources. This continues to be an area where we can all improve simply because it is a very detailed, tedious process. I personally am old school. I do not trust bibliographic applications. I do all of my citations manually. I have written papers with up to 150 sources, and I have cited every single one of those on the reference page individually. So, having said that, I want you to know that St. Thomas has an incredible library with tutorials for several aspects of writing, including preventing plagiarism. I do encourage you to take a look at that because I think most of the issues with turnitin.com are not intentional plagiarism, but plagiarism is a very serious issue. So I allude to this at the very beginning in the week 1 Zoom. But again, I want to remind you probably every week about plagiarism and citations. So this week we're working on developing your research question. The topic for my example is leveled reading instruction. The research problem could be many students in America are several grade levels behind in reading. That's the bigger problem, the issue that I want to address. The research question could be, how does leveling for reading instruction impact students' reading ability? And if I wanted to phrase it as a hypothesis, I would assume or state that there is a relationship between leveled reading instruction and student reading ability. So the research question is the question to be answered by the study. The research hypothesis is the prediction about the results of the test or the test that is conducted throughout the study. You have to be careful here because you do not develop a hypothesis in a qualitative study. You ask a specific research question in a quantitative. Your research question becomes a hypothesis. So there will be a difference between variables, or there will be a relationship among variables. When you establish your hypothesis, you're looking for the difference, or you're looking for the relationship among variables. And this can be confusing, and I think this PowerPoint will help you out throughout this week in particular. So part of your assignment is to explain whether or not you will use descriptive or inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics involve collecting of data, organizing of information, putting it in categories, summarizing the trends that you see, explaining patterns, and summarizing results. So to be honest with you, most of your studies will have both descriptive and inferential, but the descriptive data explains what is obviously there. the inferential statistics require you to look beyond what is there and to make an assumption based on that data, to test the hypothesis, to determine relationships, to make predictions, and to generalize to a larger population. So chances are you're going to use descriptive and inferential, but the studies will lend themselves towards one or the other for a primary source. Descriptive or inferential, again, I've explained it in another way on this slide. Descriptive statistics describe results of findings, and if you plan to describe the whole population of subjects, you are studying and organizing and summarizing data only. If you are using inferential data, you infer conclusions based on those findings, but a larger population of subjects based on a sample. So the difference is you might have 200 fourth graders and you're studying 200 fourth graders. You are going to use a sample to describe all of those fourth graders, or you are going to take that sample and broaden the study and basically describe fourth graders. So it's much broader and it's much larger, saying, does this study imply that this is true in general for a larger population of subjects based on a sample population that is representative? So in scales of measurement, which you'll do more next week, it can be confusing because you're talking about variables, you're talking about descriptive and inferential statistics, and now you're talking about scales of measurement. Scales of measurement are basically manners in which you measure and explain differences in your variables. For example, nominal represents a name or a number that is simply a label. For example, it just gives you information. It's not quantitative. It's just a tag on that data. For example, you may have adults versus children in your data. You may have different races of students, African American, Asian, Caucasian, Hispanic, and you might denote that with numbers, but it doesn't mean that 1 is better than 4 or 3 is less than 2. It just means that 1 stands for African American. If you have a quantitative study, you're probably going to have nominal. If you have a qualitative study, you will have nominal, because you are simply going to categorize how this group is different from that group. If there's any comparison whatsoever, you're showing differences, you will use nominal. Ordinal types of measurement shows an ordered scale where order is important, which is larger, which is smaller, which is faster, which is slower. So that's where you use percentages. So if you're going to use percentages in your study, you will use an ordinal type of measurement. So poor might be 1 and excellent might be 4. So instead of it just representing and labeling, it's a ranking based on percentages. Then interval types of measurement is where you have equal increments in between the 2 top ones and the 2 bottom ones, and it's very specific. And the distance between the A and the B is important, and the distance between the B and the C is important, and the range. So this is where you use average and standard deviation. So not only are they different, not only are they larger or smaller, but how much larger and what difference is quantified there. So research variables examine the differences between variables. For example, you have the independent variable and the level and the type of measurement. You have the dependent variable and the level and the type of measurement. So the independent variable affects the dependent variable, or it doesn't. For example, if we decided, just a simple example in these pictures, studying by reading your notes 2 hours a day improves grades, or studying by reading your notes does not improve grades. Grades are the dependent variable that are changed based on whether or not you study. So the studying is the independent, because that is the element there that doesn't change, but it creates a change in student performance, or it makes the grades go up, or it makes the grades go down. Does that make sense? Because it can be confusing. So if you explore the relationships among variables, you may do a correlation study. And correlation just means that you have, the more studying you do, the higher your grade goes. That would be a positive correlation. But if you say the more studying you do, the lower your grade goes, then that's a negative correlation. So the correlation is where your first variable either makes it go in the right direction, more is better, or more is not better. That's a negative correlation. And I also have a link here with more information on correlational research, and it explains it in simple, real people language, and it helps you with correlational studies, because many of you will end up doing a correlational comparison for your studies, if not in this class, in the future. So let's talk about the discussion board initial post. You're going to state your research question, indicate the type of research your question lends itself to, descriptive or inferential or both, and explain why. So you will not write 500 words explaining your research question, which is basically the assignment you're turning in for your written assignment. But in a couple of sentences, you're going to explain your topic of research and the question you want answered. Does leveled reading instruction impact students' reading ability? Then you're going to explain the type of research your question lends it to, qualitative or quantitative. And then you're going to go on to say the type of data measurement you're going to use is either descriptive or inferential, and why. So you will go back to those definitions to help you answer that discussion. So on your discussion board replies, great replies support a position based on research. They offer a contrasting point of view. They begin a new topic. They clarify a point already made, or they critically reflect on comments made. You can do one of those 5 things. But telling someone that their ideas are awesome, that's very complimentary, but that doesn't give you any points in your discussion board. So make sure you have a purpose behind your reply. And we're doing very well with that. I just like to remind you midterm that replies have a purpose. So then your discussion board rubric is the same as it was before, the initial posting and the response posting. And this is a description of a quality discussion that was from a prior term that is not on the website, but it's still, it falls into what we're saying on the rubric. Substantive postings are those that respond to a question in a way that supports, contrasts, begins a new topic, clarifies, or adds to the existing discussion by critically reflecting. Agreeing with someone else is not a substantive posting. This has not been a huge problem in our course this time, but I just wanted to remind you, as we start talking about research questions, you're going to want to say, that's a very interesting research topic, and I understand why you would be interested in it, but you've got to go a little bit deeper and maybe question the method or suggest a different method, or be more specific in your questioning as it relates to the assignment this week. So this says assignment 2, but it's actually assignment 3 because we changed the order of our assignments for this course because we added the annotated bibliography at the beginning. But you're going to describe the setting. All of these listings that I have on these slides right here are on the assignment page. So you need to have a setting description, which will be a category, a statement of a problem, which will be also in a category. And you will have them clearly laid out. You may need to mute. I'm getting a lot of background noise from someone. Let me see. I'll try to mute you guys so that I don't want to mute myself. Okay, there we go. So you are basically taking just this information and putting it in sentence form and creating a heading called setting description. And we do have pretty good examples as well on our templates. Your research question is clearly identified and states whether or not there is a difference when you take your independent variable and apply it to the dependent variable, or there's a relationship between two. The research hypothesis fits with the research question. So if you're doing a qualitative study, you will not have a research hypothesis. You will have a research question that is very specific. If you have a hypothesis, it means you're doing a quantitative study and you're measuring for a difference or a relationship between two sets or multiple sets. I would only suggest two sets. The purpose of the study makes sense. So if you say, I want to find out the impact of whole language spelling instruction on second grade classrooms, you're not going to make an effective study if you just interview the students, because we can't measure effective instruction without measuring student progress and achievement. So that would have to be a quantitative study. You would have to have an assessment. You would have to compare the students who did not have whole language, who had traditional, and then you would have to compare another set of students that were very similar who had whole language and compare their results. So the impact can only be measured by student performance. If you ask the question, why do teachers use whole language instruction versus traditional spelling instruction, and you're framing it from the perspective of the teachers, then you can use a qualitative study there. But I'm not saying that it wouldn't be effective, but the purpose of that study would not be to determine a statistical outcome on student performance. So the scoring criteria, in addition to the two slides before, it talks about variables, research hypothesis, and purpose of the study. And these little help comments are listed in the assignment. It explains to you what you need to do in order to fill in these blanks and create your paragraphs, which we talked about a few minutes ago. So your rubric for this assignment is going to stand throughout the rest of the term. It's going to be very similar. Do you have a conceptual understanding? Is there a methodology there? So basically, is the method that you chose effective for the study that you chose? Is your language written on a graduate level? Are there very few mechanical errors? Is each component that is present required and stipulated? So basically, are all the pieces and the parts there, and is there support for it, and are you going above and beyond? And then no errors in APA style. So that's a 15-point assignment. So if you have several spelling errors and you are not in APA format, you could very easily fail this assignment. So that's why I continue to say APA format and use of language. I try to push that with the very first assignment so you develop habits. This week, we will only have an opportunity to resubmit one time. So if your paper comes back 35% with Turnitin, you will be able to resubmit one time with a 25% deduction because of the Turnitin score. If you submit the first time, it's not a similarity score problem, and you score an 8, you can resubmit to try to earn up to 15, and some people do get full points. But remember, if you get a Turnitin resubmission, the second submission is your final submission, and there'll be a 25% deduction there. So just be aware of that. I will say this. You usually, unless you completely duplicate someone else's study, most of the time, we will not see similarity issues until the very end when we add the literature review back, because this is more about nuts and bolts than it is about using tremendous numbers of references. You will still have references. You will probably reference the text or some of the materials I have provided, because when you do each section, you kind of define that section. So you would say methodology, and you would tell me what methodology is, and you might need to cite methodology in your source, and then that would be where your citation comes from. Okay, do you have any questions? I'm going to take everybody off of mute. And even though this part of the assignment is...
We can't hear you. You muted yourself.
Sorry. Okay. I think my husband would love it if he had a mute button. But anyway. He's not, so I can't defend him on that. So what I'm saying is that you're getting into the actual research part. That's why I put the literature review at the beginning, because that's the most painful. The annotated bibliography is an assignment I actually added about 3 terms ago to teach you APA format, to get you into that habit, because the the problem that I had before is we went right into the research question and did the literature review, and we didn't even have time to learn APA format and to work with the Turnitin issues. So I wanted to help you with the book research part before you set up a study of your own. So do you have any questions this week?
Not really.
Oh, good. That's great. I don't know about you guys, but it has been a really, really long week.
Yeah.
Here for
I
me.
know.
With school ending and for my family and just adjusting back to, okay, now I can focus on St. Thomas now. I don't have any community college to teach. I don't have any public school work to do, but I don't know what it is, but no matter what, the end of the school year is stressful no matter how.
No matter what.
I mean, I just cannot tell you. And then summer school starts like the day
Right.
after graduation, and it's like I can't even like inhale and exhale before it all starts again. So I know you guys are very busy too, and you pushed really hard to get through the annotated bibliography and through the literature review. It's really going to be easy from here on out, as long as you don't make it too hard. Don't go too deep. Don't compare too many different things. Make it very simple. Compare. Does leveled reading instruction impact student performance? Yes or no? Don't compare 5 different types of leveled reading instruction. You know, compare one thing with another, and don't make it any harder than it has to be, because for every comparison, you have to have additional methods. You have to have additional types of data. You have to have additional credibility checks. So be very careful with that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go if you don't have any questions. I will be much better this week about email and responding to you. It's been a little bit confusing because I have to remove the paper from the assignment box. I have to remove it so that you can resubmit. And when I remove it, it removes your score from Speed Grader as if I'd never graded it. And that freaked me out this week. But what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to keep a manual list of your grades so that when you resubmit, I can actually see the difference. They're working on that technicality, so it should be okay. All right, so good luck this week. You shouldn't have any problems if you made it through the literature review. One more quick message. In week 5, you will turn in a combination of literature review. You have all of the pieces of your research proposal will be turned in at once. I will give you one last chance to resubmit anything from the first 5 weeks. So if you want to turn in your literature review yet again, you will cut it and paste it into a new document, turn it in, and you can improve your grade yet once again. So I think that there are some people.
You're muted again.
There will be some people who are very happy that they can resubmit one piece of their proposal from week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and improve their grade one last time, because it's going to be perfect by the time you turn it in week 5 anyway. And so I'll give you a little bit more information about that. So that will be like an amnesty, no 25% off, no deduction for turn it in if that was a problem in the beginning. It's, hey, here's my literature review. Take it and give me a 10. I've earned it. So it should work out.
Awesome.
So other than that, that's all I have for you this week. I hope that you guys are getting some time off. I know it's difficult with being in graduate school and working full time too. But that's what we do, right? We burn the candle at the end.
Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Take care. Email me if you have questions and I'll get right back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem.
Thank you.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.